Got it.
Hello, everybody. This is Joni with Paperback Exchange Bookstore, 6412 Ridge Road in lovely Port Richey, Florida. And today we have the honor of being able to interview local author and Japanese historian. And you've got an MA in Asian Studies as well.
Yes.
Local author Kate Shanahan, and she has written Tangled Spirits. Welcome, Kate.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Tell us a little bit about your book.
Okay. Well, Tangled Spirits is a book about friendship, basically. It also has time travel, and most of it's set in the year 999 in ancient Japan. So it's about an American college student who's on a study abroad in Japan, and she goes back in time where her spirit possesses the body of a Japanese noblewoman who's trying very hard to become a shaman secretly. So the two spirits are in one body and they fight for control. And there's an exorcism that fails. And so then they have to realize that they must work together in order to get the American college student, whose name is Mina, to get Mina home. And in order to do that, they travel to the capital to seek help from the famous Seimei, who's a character a lot of people might recognize from popular culture, like anime or video games. He was a real person, though, and he would have been in his 70s at this point in time. But he forces them to spy for him on the young empress for his own nefarious reasons. And so there you have some danger and some excitement, and they become very close with the empress. And they meet Sei Shonagon, who is an actual literary person from 10th century Japan. She wrote this right here, the Pillow Book. So she was the inspiration for me to write this book. So I get to meet Sei Shonagon, and they get to meet the author of The Tale of Genji as well. So it's kind of an exciting adventure tale about friendship and also incorporating these elements of Japanese history and literature that I think a lot of Americans and people in other non-Japanese countries don't know.
Right. So that sounds really interesting. You've got anime, you've got Japanese history, you've got time travel.
Mm-hmm.
You've got an exorcism going on at the same
That's
time.
right. It's a lot of
people
elements.
sharing the same body.
Yes.
I love all these elements. It piques so many different people's interests. So obviously you've got a lot of history. Tell us about how you came to want to write something like this with this Japanese history. Yeah. You spent some time in Japan yourself, didn't you?
Yes. So I graduated from college in the early 80s with a degree in political science focused on East Asia. And I taught English in Japan for 2 years, and that really got my interest going in Japan. And that's when I first read in English. My Japanese is never good enough to read this in the original, these books. And then I went back to Michigan to the Center for Japanese Studies to get my master's in Japanese studies. And then I got a job with Honda in Ohio. Honda has a big manufacturing and engineering facility there. And I just loved that job. I fit really well there. I got to do all different jobs, even new model stuff, being early on the development of the CRV or the Odyssey. And then I retired. But all the while in the back of my mind, I was still thinking about these writers from ancient Japan, Sei Shonagon and Murasaki Shikibu, and like, how did they do it? How did they create basically the world's first novel at a time when people all over the world couldn't read, much less women, or write? These two women lived at the same time. They both wrote these works of literature studied today, and yet they weren't friends. Like, how did that happen? I really wanted to write a book about them. But when I started writing it, I realized the average American is probably going to be confused and bored if I just set it in this time period. So I came up with my American to go back in time, take the reader back with Mina, and kind of learn about this period as she goes through it.
And with the popularity with Outlander and books like Addie LaRue, where they're traveling through time, or they don't have control of the time that they're in. That's so popular right now and so interesting. Along the same lines with all the vampire and werewolf stories, right? We've got all this time travel things that we have yet to attain, or in a fantastic way. We keep trying to attain that. That's amazing.
But in this case, it's based on the beliefs of the people of Japan of that time period, which is the belief in spirit possession. They really did believe that illness was caused by spirit possession. And an exorcism was just another form of a medical practice. You know, it was just everybody did it.
Take 2 aspirin and call
Yeah,
your
and an
local,
exorcism. Yeah.
call your
Call
local religious exorcism person.
Yes.
So obviously you studied some of this history of these, you know, the first novel. That's pretty amazing. When you were studying Japanese studies, and then you ended up working for Honda. That's pretty amazing. I've got friends from Ohio that spent many years working at Honda too.
Maybe I know them.
In manufacturing. You probably know Ralph. But I spent some time manufacturing up in Ohio too, as well. You know, I'm originally from Ohio. I've been down here for about 24 years now, and spent my summers in Michigan. So who do you root for at the OSU Michigan game? I root for both sides. I say get him. Ooh, both of them. No matter which way the ball's going. So obviously those are some of your most beloved authors. And you spent some time thinking about this over what? How long were you working at Honda in manufacturing that you had to put this on the back burner?
Yeah, I worked at Honda for 27 years. And from time to time, I'd talk to my Japanese colleagues and I'd say, you know, what about, you know, Tilly Genji? Isn't that awesome? They'd be like, you're a nerd.
That's classic lit for them, right?
Yeah, right. That's like, Shakespeare's like being really into Shakespeare, like some Japanese person asking you, like, what about Shakespeare? Well, you probably be like, yeah, what about Shakespeare?
Luckily, Shakespeare didn't have to study Shakespeare, right?
Yeah, right.
So you've got your books available here at our store, at the Paperback Exchange. Do you have your books available at other shops in this area as well? Can you
Tarpon Springs, the Gilded Page in Tarpon Springs.
Just opened up in Tarpon Springs.
You just opened and they're carrying the book.
Great.
Tombola Books in St. Petersburg. And Conworld's Emporium, which isn't a bookstore in Tarpon Springs, but they are carrying it. They have a Japan section. They do pop culture and they have a Japan related section. So yeah, they have my book there too.
Yep, we've got pictures of your books on the shelves out in the real world. You've got your Instagram page here. People can contact you that way. You've also got it on Kindle as well, if that's their preferred method of reading. We don't go for that, but we understand some folks need to have their Kindles, and also your Twitter page. Now, as far as what's been going on with this book, this is your first novel?
Correct. Yes, I'm currently working on the sequel. Yeah, I mean, it doesn't end in a way that you have to have a sequel, but I like these characters and I want to keep going. So I'm working on the sequel right now.
So as far as finding them here around town, folks can order that off of Amazon as well, if that's their preferred method of getting your book. You've got another one coming. And so how has the reception been as far as, is this your first interview? Have you gone out?
This is the first interview. So thank you very much. I'm thrilled to do this. I have, because I've published independently, I'm kind of learning as I go, how to use social media, how to reach out to bookstores, things like that.
I showed up at our store. That's 90% of the problem. That's 90% of the hard work right there, right?
Yeah. So I'm just kind of learning it as I go. It's hard to balance the time spent kind of promoting the book versus writing the new one. Like, I'd love to just spend all that time just writing my new one, but I don't want my book sales to go to zero. So you just have to kind of keep it out there. Just have to do something, every day.
It's definitely a juggling game with all of the different platforms. We spend a lot of time going back to try to find messages that we've been talking to people with. There's platforms that you can, throw all your messaging together with at the same time, but we find that it seems to be rather confusing when you're trying to juggle Twitter and Facebook.
Yes.
And I love how you do have your Amazon page set up there. You've got all of your links just typed out so people can just copy that, and that's how it was so easy for me to find all of your stuff too. So that is one of the things that people don't realize is when you're sharing all those links, a lot of people don't know how to make those work. And we often have people coming into our shop trying to find where to get books from local authors and things like that, and we just direct them to the right spot, whether we have them or not. We support our local authors here in town. So you have any book signings coming up here in the area? Do you are you reaching out to Tumblr or Gilded Page to do some signings like that?
Not at the moment. I will. I think I'd like to get my sequel a little further along, and then kind of start to promote the first book more as preparation for rolling out the second book. I'm doing First Friday Festival in Tarpon Springs, first Friday in March.
Nice.
That's always a nice opportunity for people to they're not looking for a book necessarily, but they're like, local author, cool. Japan, cool, wow. I haven't read anything like this. And quite a few of my readers are people who they never would have gone out and looked for a book set in Japan. But when they see it, they're intrigued by it, and they read it, and they learn a lot while having a good time reading a story. And so that's what a lot of my reviews say. It's like, oh, this book was completely outside my normal range, but I read it, I loved it. The characters are so interesting, and I just learned so much about Japan along the way.
And we know a little bit about Japan here in the West, but we spend an awful lot of time. I know I read The Three-Bodied Problem at one point, and there was a lot of footnotes in the bottom of it that talked about the cultural differences between our culture and their culture, and just really interesting that things that you wouldn't think of that were a big deal to them as far as shaming and things like that go. To us, it's just like, oh, well, you just brush it off your shoulder and just keep going. But it can ruin a whole family for them. So very interesting. Love the idea of having so many different genres incorporated in this. The accidental spirit possession, a friendship unlike any other. So a little bit of romance in there too.
Just
they're the same body though. How would that work?
So the only romance is at the very beginning. Mina meets a fellow college student at her Japanese university, Japanese, and he's the one who kind of gets her spirit to leave her body and go to the past. And she has a big crush on him. And so, but then you don't really see him anymore in the book until the very end when she comes back to her body. Oh, I just gave away the ending.
So maybe we'll just have a little bit of more information on that relationship
in the sequel.
On your sequel.
I had a number of people say, we want more Mina and Kenji. You gotta get more Mina and Kenji in there. So it will definitely be a lot more Mina and Kenji.
So if you would like to tell any of your potential readers out there the best way to get a hold of your book and how would you reel them in, what would you say to them?
If you have any interest in Japanese culture or history, which a lot of people do, because of Pokemon and video games and so on, then this is a really good way to kind of see the foundation of a lot of that stuff. Like there's so much in even Pokemon. You can identify 6 Pokemon that are based on Japanese gods. So, if you have any interest in that, if you're interested in historical fiction, but you just don't know much about the non-Western world, then I would say this is a book for you. Even historical fantasy, if you liked A Daughter of the Moon Goddess, for example, or Heart of the Sun Warrior, then this might fit in that as well, because it's got the element of fantasy with the spirit possession and a little bit of magic. And it's also kind of an adventure story and a story of friendship. So if you're just looking for something that's like a story of 2 very, very, very different people struggling to understand each other and become friends, then this would be the book for you.
The opposites attract, right?
Yeah. Or it's really about finding that, what is it we have in common as humans? Because when I first went to Japan, I found it I really wanted to study what was different about the culture and really understand it. But then when I read, say, Shanahan's work, The Pillow Book, I realized why do I like it so much? And part of it was just like, she sounds like me in some ways. Like it connects to those experiences we have as humans. Like we all get embarrassed.
That transcend time.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So that was kind of what I wanted to do with this book, is kind of highlight what we have in common as people, regardless of era or language or culture.
Even if we don't think we have anything in common, we do, don't we?
Yeah. Yes.
Well, thank you for joining us here at the Paperback Exchange. And we have your book here. Folks can get it online. They can look you up on your Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter pages and get links there. Kate, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much. I really enjoyed this. I'm happy to see you carrying it at the Paperback Exchange. I love your store. There's just so many books everywhere. If you're a book lover, go to the Paperback Exchange.
Thank you so much, everybody. And please sleep less, read more, and please wash your hands.